We have had a lot of isekai anime where guy gets reincarnated into another world and he's some hot dude with OP abilities and everything given to him. We're done with that. It's old, it's been overplayed, let's move on to something else. Let's get back to the basics. Well, enter Uglymug Epicfighter, a series where an ugly dude gets transported to another world to become even more ugly. He basically becomes that guy you see in all the time. The big fat guy that's super ugly that, yeah, takes on all the girls. But it's not going that direction. Don't worry, because this dude will die if he ever touches a girl. So it's not going that direction. Don't worry. But yes, it's a series that I've been checking out for this season. I've gone through 3 episodes of it so far, and I'm actually liking what I've got so far. It's got a good premise to it. It's got some good laughs in here. The setup's been good. And yeah, it's even got a little gut punch in there. Like, I wasn't really expecting to have a little gut punch in there. Now, I won't say that it's a perfect show. I had a little brief moment in the series where I'm like, yeah, this is kind of move on, you know? This is not doing anything for me. Please move on. But I think the setup is good. The guy becoming a god and just wanting to protect the smile. That's where it seems like it's going so far. For those that don't know what Uglymug Epicfighter is about, it opens up with this guy who is a salesman, and yes, he's always been ugly his entire life, but he doesn't let that keep him down. He actually does very good work, he tries very hard, he puts customers first always, but unfortunately one day while he's heading home from work, he ends up bumping into this girl that claims that he assaulted her in the train. And because his bags are full of adult games, nobody believes him. He ends up being taken to court, he gets this big massive fine, and unfortunately afterwards he discovers that he's been laid off from his work as well because of it. This all leads to him being pretty much a shut-in. He stays at home, kind of pretty much just feeding off his parents' money and whatnot, until eventually he ends up seeing these posts online that talk about, like, don't make the same mistake I did, because returning back from this world, you have to give up like half your life, yada yada yada. It's some ritual for being transported to another world where you can have another life. If you're not enjoying this life, try out this one. And he's thinking, okay, this is probably crazy, but hey, why not? Let's try it. So he ends up doing the whole ritual. You have to like face your PC a certain direction, raise your hands up and everything like that. And sure enough, his computer screen pops up with this little prompt where you can start entering in some information. First little prompt says to enter in your looks. And he's thinking, okay, well, I've been ugly my entire life, whatever. Minus 255. And then it pops the next screen, and he's got a massive amount of bonus points for giving up his looks. And then there's a little special notes box that you can enter in anything. And so he just starts entering a bunch of like negatives, like earn 1/10,000th of the money. If he touches a girl, he gets like 10% HP damage. And yeah, there's even the aspect of if he does have sex with any girls, he dies. And all these negatives just like shoot up his bonus points and gives him a whole bunch of like extra attributes like experience boosts and whatnot. But unfortunately, he doesn't get a chance to spend any of his points. He ends up just being transported to this other world. There he wakes up. Yes, he looks around, looks in a mirror, and then discovers that, yes, that minus 255 is true. He's this big, tubby guy, just looks ugly. And then he discovers there's 3 other individuals that are there, 3 other people that were from his life that has been transported here as well. We have Sika, who's this girl that seems like she's a sheltered girl. You have this lolly girl, and then you have Seiji, who is like this pretty boy. This hut ends up being like a starter hut, so it has like a bunch of starter weapons and gold and whatnot in there. He doesn't touch anything because, again, that whole negative effect. He doesn't want to touch the money. They end up divvying out all the equipment before heading out to go to the nearby town, but unfortunately they're attacked by goblins. At which point we find out that this girl and Seiji just kind of rush out there and do a pretty good job of attacking all the goblins. Seka's inside the hut trying to string her bow. She can't seem to get it. And Yoshioka discovers that, yeah, he didn't spend his attribute points, so he's incredibly weak. But he ends up killing the first goblin and gets a whole bunch of experience from it before spending like 1 trillion into each attribute, gaining the title of Almighty God, and then being able to literally flick the goblin and it just rockets him away. He helps Seka with stringing her bow, claiming that he has a disability that requires him to string bows. She lets him shoot 1 arrow, which basically summons a godlike dragon that comes in and one-shots everything. It just gets crazy at that point. He also discovers that he can pretty much transform, sticks into arrows, which he does to help out Seka. And yeah, they survive their first encounter. What follows this is they head to the nearby town where they find a burger joint, at which point Yoshioka is like, okay, this is good. It's my chance to get away from them, go solo. So he kind of sneaks away. But then Seka shows up with a massive burger and says that she knows that he helped him string the bow and was making arrows for him in secret. And so she's doing this to kind of repay him, that she's super rich and that she can help him out. At which point we discover that, yes, that whole 10% HP for touching girls is actually true, because he barely touched her hand and he gets an incredible shock of pain before throwing the burger. But no, it kind of just turns this whole thing where Yoshioka was trying to find an opportunity to get away from this group. Doesn't really want to be around them. They're all their, isekais that are getting away from their life or whatever. He's just kind of going to do his own thing. But every time he tries to do that, Sika kind of just pulls him back into the group by doing something for him. Like, again, getting the burger for him, giving up this other burger that she had because he lost his other burger. He's like, okay, now I gotta repay her again. They end up going to a dungeon with this other adventurer who's another isekai, but he turns out to be a bad guy that was trying to trick them, and Yoshioka kind of has to utilize his body to not directly attack people so that they don't obliterate them with his stats. We find out that Seiji was actually one of the customers that Yoshioka had helped out before, kind of build his business, which unfortunately just ended up collapsing anyways. Sika at some point ends up slipping out that she forgot that she can walk, which sort of signifies to Yoshioka that, oh, this girl, why she was so sheltered is because essentially she was probably paralyzed in her previous life. That's why she's always kind of clumsy and trips over herself. This is a girl that just has never really experienced the world. And this all kind of leads Yoshioka into, like, protective mode. Like, he calls out to the gods, like, why would anybody allow this girl to have such a horrible life? Oh, that's right. I'm an almighty god, so I guess I should be the one that will try to make sure that this girl, Sika, who's incredibly sheltered because she was always paralyzed in her previous life, maybe I should be the one that actually protects her. Until she at least gets a grasp on life anyways. And then, yes, it all wraps up the episode with Sika trying to become friends with the other girl that came there with them. She ends up giving this other girl a nickname, which is Rizu, before Rizu confronts Yoshioka and tells him that she knows his real identity, knows his real name, and that he was the one that helped Seiji out with his business. I'm thinking it's going to probably be the girl that falsely claimed that he assaulted her. I know it's totally going to be her. Like, everybody from his previous life that he's bumped into is going to be in this new life. I just know it. Anyways, that all leads to my thoughts on Uglymug Epicfighter. So far, like I said before, I'm actually really, really enjoying this show. I think the only negative point that I had in the show so far was the whole bit with the guide that was helping them, and eventually it gets this whole thing where he drugs them all and then brings in a bunch of bandits to kind of lock them up. And Seiji unlocks his special note ability, which is to never let people down. And then it turns this whole thing where Seiji's such a good guy because he doesn't want to actually harm them. He wants them to, like, give up their bad ways. And then the entire time Yoshioka's trying to cover up the fact that he's super OP. It drugged out way too much. I think the part of the show that I'm really, really liking is Yoshioka and Sika. I think those two are a really interesting little dynamic. Again, what it opens up with is this guy that has really had no experience in life with, like, love life or, happiness in his previous life. He was just a businessman, a salesman that had, like, horrible looks and nobody really wanted to interact with him. Now he's given this new life where he's even uglier, but now he's around individuals who are sort of allowing him to be a part of the group. And it's mostly around Sika because she keeps pulling him back into the group over and over again every time he wants to be a recluse. He keeps trying to get away from the group, but she keeps coming over and giving him things. And it's all kind of predicated around that initial interaction between them and the idea that he helped her out with the bow, and then he was secretly giving her more arrows, even though she's horrible with the bow. Like, this girl's just taking them and she's like rapid fire arrows and just shooting them over everything. And he keeps giving her more arrows so that she can keep going. It even leads to the fact that she buys, like, massive amounts of arrows later on so she doesn't have to rely on him. But she's like a complete failure. Like, she's an absolute failure that just needs somebody to help her out. And because she keeps pulling him back in the group, he's trying to help her out in some way in order to repay that favor. But again, it all kind of culminated to that moment where they're in the burger joint. She sees the cat and she goes, I wish the cat would come over here. And he's like, well, why don't you just go over to the cat? And she says, oh, that's right. I can walk now. And she stands up, and it was like, that was the moment where it's like, oh, gut punch, there it is, there it is. That's why she's so clumsy, and that's why she keeps rubbing the top of her hand, is because she's so used to having the IV in her hand, and she's so trusting of people and is so naive because she's never experienced being around people. She's never been in the outside world. Yes, it does technically show her very briefly, I'm assuming, very briefly in his previous world, where he was walking by this park and there was this purple-haired girl that was just getting harassed by a bunch of kids. But it's obvious that this girl was paralyzed, and so she's never experienced the outside world. And it all kind of builds into the idea that he's like, she's so pure and she's so naive that I must protect her. I must protect this girl until at least she knows what the hell's going on around her, until she at least knows how people truly are. That part of it, again, I really, really like. I think it's a really solid thing to kind of build into. Sika is just super cute. I think that she's an absolutely adorable character. I love how she just kind of sees the world differently, sees Yoshioka very differently, and how the two of them kind of work. Outside of those two characters, I think that's where I'm sort of mixed on. Like, Seiji's an okay character. He's this character that had this massive corporation that he built up, and it's a lot of thanks to what Yoshioka told him. But it all kind of fell apart, and he let down a lot of people. So in this new life, he put in a special note, I don't want to let anybody down. Like, I think it even puts somewhere in there, like, if he fails to keep this oath, it will cause him some sort of harm or something like that. He has to, fulfill this. So he's just kind of a do-gooder. He's just a do-gooder. Rizu is where the question mark's going to be. This girl for the entire show has been completely quiet. She's just been there. So I found her kind of sus to begin with, but the moment that the third episode ends and she literally kowtows and falls to the ground right in front of him and says, I'm so sorry. I know who you are. You're the guy that helped out Seiji, aren't you? You're Yoshioka Shigeru. I know who you are. The fact that she apologized at first, yeah, it could be to him reprimanding her earlier in that episode, but I think this is where she's apologizing because she's the girl who falsely accused him. She knows who he is and that he's been helping them out, and she probably wants to have a normal life in this new world. Why she would come forward and admit that out the gate could mean that she legitimately feels sorry for it. I don't know. It's going to be very much a question mark as to how they can play that out, because she's pretty much what ruined his previous life. And a simple apology and kowtow is not going to be sufficient for a lot of people in a lot of people's mind. But I think that's probably the direction they're going to go. I don't know any other reason why she possibly would know who he is. Outside of all that, though, it's been a really decent show. I do enjoy kind of the mechanics they've explored so far. Yes, it's a big shrug in the idea that it is another show where the guy has godlike powers. His stats are literally through the roof. Anything and everything that he wants to destroy, he can easily destroy. Like, you literally have this point where he literally flicks one of his burgers from his nose. Just flicks it, and it literally blasts a hole in the wall before he proceeds to tell everybody that was Seiji that did it. Oh, look what Seiji did. And everybody's like, holy crap, that dude's like OP. Like, no, it was literally his snot. He's flicked it, and it literally destroyed a wall. He's massively OP, and it just kind of mostly turns into him, like, not showing it. And that's kind of an annoying thing in a lot of shows where they're so OP and they don't want people to know, so they literally actively don't use their OP abilities, which makes you wonder why they even bother giving them OP abilities that he doesn't want to show. That aside, that stuff is kind of annoying. I do like that there is so many demerits given to him by his own choice that he has to find ways around it, which is kind of clever. Like, for instance, if he wants to, survive and be able to eat and have money to eat, he literally has to barter instead. Because if he picks up, again, $10,000, he only gets $1 of it. And so the way to offset that is he goes out and he essentially crafts arrows, brings them in, barters them for other goods. I don't want money for these arrows, just give me some bananas and these other things. So it's kind of finding clever ways to get around the demerits that he has. And I don't recall the other demerits, so hopefully they kind of do some fun stuff with that other stuff. Like, his other demerits, like the whole, like, damage from touching females, makes him even afraid of touching female cats. Like, there's a cat goes by and he's like, oh wait, I don't know if it's a female cat, I don't want to touch it. There's like a goofy element to him avoiding interaction with females that might be able to do some funny things later on. It literally is his only weakness. I think at some point he even mentions to one guy, thankfully these are a bunch of dudes that are bandits because otherwise they could easily kill me. That's definitely something he's probably going to have to keep under wraps because, yeah, easily a femme fatale can kill him. It's been pretty solid so far. I've been enjoying it. Again, a lot of my enjoyment has been around Yoshioka and his interaction with Sika. I think she's too pure, and I like the idea of him sort of, again, guiding her and protecting her as she figures out the world. But it's been a solid series so far. Looking forward to more. I don't know. This is definitely one that I can acknowledge that within 2 episodes, I can find if it's going to get repetitive or not. because I think once we have this initial setup, it could kind of fall flat beyond that point. I think my biggest fears right now is the other adventurers, because they're not shying away from the idea that possibly a lot of the people they're going to interact with are going to be other isekais. And what they already established with the first guy they ran into is that, yeah, technically people coming to this world are mostly going to be people that are unhappy with their previous life. Angry people, that kind of stuff. And so it's going to be a lot of outlaws that are angry. And most of the shows that do this don't work for me. I think the only one here recently that has worked out for me was the No Longer Allowed in Another World. But in most cases, they don't. So I'm very hesitant as to if this is going to turn into a bunch of cackling bad guys from another world. We'll see, though. That's my thoughts so far on Uglymug Epicfighter. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, hit the like button down below. If you like this content, you want to support the channel more, become a member of the channel. But until next time, y'all take care.